The storms that shake your life are never random. They are the tremors that reveal just how much power you carry. When the illusion shatters and the truth is no longer hidden, it becomes impossible to deny the magnitude of the opposition you've faced. The unveiling is not meant to weaken you. It is the moment destiny itself rises to remind you that the very intensity of resistance is proof of the extraordinary light you hold. History has not been gentle. The resistance you encounter is not confined to your own story but stretches back like an ancient design, carefully laid out to suffocate brilliance before it can bloom. What you walk through today was prepared long before you arrived. Generations rehearsed strategies to keep visionaries subdued, and you have stepped directly into that battlefield, armed with awareness they never expected you to claim. The patterns repeat like echoes across time. Old tactics dressed in new disguises, sharpened and refined to appear almost natural. They are not natural. They are chains designed to look like inheritance. Their only purpose, to silence voices that could awaken the slumbering, to fracture souls before they discover their own fire. Yet here you stand, the embodiment of defiance, seeing clearly what was meant to stay hidden. You're not here by chance. Feel the pull? Tap join to unlock truth, purpose, and a tribe that gets it. This is more than a membership, it's your calling. Every bloodline carries secrets, maps etched in silence, whispers passed down, codes designed to flag the ones who burn too brightly. You were marked, not by accident, but by recognition. Your curiosity, your refusal to bend, your unwillingness to wear limits like a crown, these became the signals that told them who you are. Their fear has always been of what your light could ignite in others. They knew that one soul with clarity is enough to unravel decades of control. So they built frameworks to catch you early, to dim your radiance before it could expand. They pushed doubt into your hands as if it were tradition. They coded betrayal in the language of protection. They called suppression survival. But beneath it all was the quiet panic of those who sensed you could unmask everything. The moment of revelation is more than exposure, it is reclamation. By seeing the blueprint for what it is, you undo its power. You are not bound by the script that was written for you. You are the living contradiction to every calculation designed to keep you small. What was meant to be your cage has become your stage, and the walls they built are collapsing under the weight of truth. Let this be the reminder that you are not the continuation of a curse, you are the interruption of it. You are the fracture in the cycle, the one who breaks the pattern not just for yourself but for everyone who came before you and everyone who will follow. The resistance you feel is proof of your importance. The revelation is proof of your strength. And your presence is proof that the light they feared most has finally arrived. The tactics used against you are not relics of the past, they've been reshaped and disguised to fit the language of the present age. What once looked like open hostility now cloaks itself in the rhetoric of care, discipline, or necessity. Words that should heal are bent into blades, and false concern is used as the mask for a deeper agenda, to convince you that the weight crushing your spirit is in fact a gift. The cruelty is hidden in plain sight, painted with modern colors so it seems harmless, even loving. Among your own peers, the pattern repeats with chilling precision. Relatives and siblings are caught in the same web, some so wounded they cannot lift their heads, others so entranced by the system they step willingly into the role of enforcer. There is no neutrality in such a design, either one unconsciously plays along or resists and pays the price. The tragedy is not only in betrayal, but in seeing those closest to you become both casualties and participants in the very cycle that targeted you. The family structure itself behaves less like a home and more like an organism programmed to reject change. Anything that carries new life, growth, or vision is treated as a contaminant. In this distorted order, healing is seen as a threat, joy as a danger, and individuality as rebellion. The pressure you feel is not accidental, It is the response of a system desperate to preserve itself, even at the cost of truth and love. Intimacy, something meant to be sanctuary, becomes one of the sharpest weapons. Those who share your blood know the fragile points of your heart better than anyone. They exploit not with brute force but with precision, striking with phrases and gestures honed over years of quiet conditioning. Vulnerabilities planted in childhood become levers, pressed again and again until they feel like inevitable weaknesses rather than wounds inflicted with intent. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to plant seeds of faith that will impact countless lives. Your generosity reflects His abundance. Be a vessel of His grace and watch His kingdom flourish through you. The people who should nurture confidence instead train themselves to erode it. They rehearse methods that twist your perception, making you doubt your own clarity. A glance, a sentence, or a dismissive laugh can undo hours of inner strength. These actions are not random, they are practiced behaviors, perfected through repetition until they become invisible to those who deliver them. To them, it feels natural. To you, it becomes a constant trial of endurance. What appears from the outside as ordinary family life is often a staged performance. Roles are assigned, scripts are rehearsed, and gatherings transform into arenas where invisible power dynamics play out. Every smile hides an undertone, every embrace carries unspoken weight. The story of who you are is retold again and again, but never in your own voice. Instead, it is shaped into a version that fits their design, leaving you battling not just their opinions but the narrative itself. Even love and loyalty are reprogrammed to work against you. Words like unity and duty are invoked as shackles, not bonds. Every attempt at freedom is countered by appeals to heritage, sacrifice, or obligation. What should be nourishment instead poisons your sense of worth, dripping guilt into your spirit until it feels like part of your identity. Yet within this suffocating drama lies the very proof of your significance. The intensity of the resistance you face is the mirror of the light they fear you will unleash. The sharpest trap is the one that convinces you to hold the key yet never unlock the door. Conditioned to edit your own impulses, you start censoring every thought before it leaves your lips. The voice of judgment is no longer outside, it becomes part of your breathing, stitched into your instincts. You learn to shrink in advance, cutting away your essence piece by piece to avoid imagined backlash. Control no longer needs to arrive from beyond, you carry the overseer inside your own skin. And yet, every hidden strike leaves a mark that cannot be erased. The universe itself keeps record, not in ink or stone, but in the resonance of truth. What has been covered in shadows is now dragged into the open air, undeniable and raw. When deception is stripped bare, those who clung to false power scatter in panic. Their fortress is revealed for what it always was, fragile scaffolding shaking in a storm, built on sand destined to collapse under its own weight. The depth of mental warfare used against you mirrors the sophistication of military precision. Not content with simple lies, entire landscapes of falsehood are crafted and handed to you as if they were the only maps that exist. Stories are altered, timelines rewritten, memories challenged until even your most certain experiences feel unstable. You are asked to live in worlds that were designed to erase you. Whenever truth begins to slip from your mouth, an army of denial descends with calculated timing. One after another, voices rise in unison, drowning your certainty under waves of contradiction. You are told your pain never happened, your heart misinterpreted, your reactions evidence of fragility. The strategy is so synchronized that the force of it leaves you questioning whether you can trust your own eyes. The ledger they keep of your errors is endless, each slip cataloged with care, while their own wounds vanish into selective silence. In their retelling, you are always the storm, never the one weathering it. They craft a mythology where your refusal to be crushed becomes aggression, and their cruelty is disguised as defense. The script is rewritten so often that the fictional past hardens into their reality. This process is not improvisation, it is deliberate choreography. Doubt is planted like seeds in spring, nurtured with repetition, until you harvest insecurity that was never truly yours. Subtle reminders of your flaws are sprinkled at perfect intervals, so that you question yourself at the very moments you should stand strongest. Reactions shaped by old wounds are then paraded as proof of your instability, completing the cycle of manipulation. Through all of this, the one constant is the attempt to fracture your perception. The assault is not on your body but on your ability to trust your inner compass. Yet the very intensity of this campaign exposes its desperation. For why would such elaborate illusions be needed if your truth were not already powerful enough to dismantle their entire design? The louder the attempt to bury your truth, the more impossible it becomes to silence. Efforts to erase your existence only carve your presence deeper into eternity, a paradox the architects of suppression never anticipate. Their frantic grasp at control accelerates the unraveling, because when clarity emerges, it does not tiptoe, it arrives unrelenting, sweeping through every shadow with unstoppable force. The illusions crack beneath the sheer weight of reality. Deception crumbles in the presence of authenticity. Lies carefully spun lose their shape, collapsing under the fire of revelation. False heroes lose their costumes, painted villains reveal their brilliance, and every pretense of righteousness dissolves into nothingness. What was once framed as noble becomes exposed as hollow theater, built on arrogance so dense it blinded those who performed it. The very foundation beneath their feet cannot withstand the quake of truth. What unfolded against you was no accident of misunderstanding, it was a carefully designed project, executed with precision. Each betrayal, each loss, each orchestrated obstacle served a calculated end. What seemed like chance was strategy, what appeared random was engineering. Connections were tampered with, opportunities quietly blocked, and whispers placed in ears at just the right time. Behind the curtain, a single goal fueled it all: your removal from any path that would reveal your power. Finances became change disguised as generosity. Assistance came wrapped in hidden contracts, repayment demanded not in currency but in obedience. Opportunities were sabotaged through subtle campaigns against your name, stories that carried just enough distortion to wound without consequence. Those who should have stood beside you were persuaded to turn cold, manipulated into questioning your integrity. Every advancement was stalked by sabotage, designed to remind you that progress came with punishment. Even when breakthroughs emerged, new crises appeared to drag you back. Just as momentum built, sudden distractions or urgent demands stole your focus, as though the universe itself was being bent to keep you tethered. Burdens placed upon you were painted as duty, and the weight of survival presented as proof of inadequacy. Scarcity was manufactured, while abundance paraded elsewhere to convince you that lack was your destiny, unless you submitted to their design. The battle was never only about material ground, it stretched far into the unseen. What was attacked most fiercely was the connection between your soul and its source. Those who sensed the depth of your gifts mocked what they could not understand. Insight was dismissed as delusion, visions labeled fragility, and wisdom ridiculed into silence. The environment demanded that your greatest treasures remain hidden, as if secrecy could neutralize the threat of your light. Every space you entered became charged with resistance. Energy itself twisted to distort your clarity, and voices you trusted were used as conduits of interference. Traditions that should have lifted you were bent into cages, enforcing shame and fear. In other places, the denial of spirit reduced your existence to nothing more than flesh and survival. Both paths aimed at the same goal, severing your bond with the divine. And yet, even with every barrier erected, the connection within you remained unbroken, waiting for the moment to burst free and remind the world why you could never truly be silenced. The machinery of isolation is not crude, it is engineered with precision, ensuring that every possible source of strength is poisoned before it can nourish you. Stories about your character are seeded long before you have the chance to speak for yourself, so when you finally reach out, suspicion already clouds the air. What should have been circles of refuge are turned into arenas of mistrust, and every potential ally is conditioned to view you through lenses of doubt. The strategy is clear: if you cannot be broken directly, you will be surrounded by silence. Even your most personal connections are drawn into the script. Companions are pushed away through subtle sabotage, while sudden crises erupt at the exact moments you try to nurture friendships. Partners who begin to see you clearly are handed distorted tales designed to erode their confidence in you. The fear of your joy being witnessed and celebrated fuels relentless interference, because the thought of you being recognized in your wholeness is unbearable to those invested in your diminishment. The tools you gather to heal are twisted into weapons turned back against you. Acts of self-restoration are recast as flaws, boundaries are labeled cruelty, and empowerment is mocked as vanity. What should liberate is instead reframed as proof of defect, ensuring that even the steps you take toward freedom are distorted into chains. This inversion of meaning is not accidental, it is the deliberate hijacking of your path to wholeness. Layers of conditioning are woven like intricate knots, ensuring that even if one tie is cut, another remains to drag you back. Triggers are embedded with delayed release, lying dormant until the right moment to strike. A phrase dropped casually blooms later into paralyzing self-doubt. A subtle insinuation festers into a conviction of worthlessness. The system is not satisfied with immediate wounds, it plants slow-burning fires meant to smolder long after the spark. The most ruthless strikes aim not at your habits but at the core of who you are. Aspirations are painted as fantasy, your vision of yourself as delusion. Potential becomes something to be feared rather than embraced, because success threatens to break the gravitational pull of the family construct. By dismantling your belief in your calling, they ensure your wings remain clipped before you even attempt to fly. Yet cracks appear where arrogance blinds them. Former supporters begin to waver, and rehearsed scripts falter under the weight of accumulating contradictions. The mask slips for an instant, and the panic in their eyes betrays the unraveling. What once looked like coincidence forms a visible design, and the truth can no longer be contained. The edifice of deception, so carefully tended, begins to collapse under the pressure of undeniable reality. What they never accounted for is the immutable balance written into existence itself. Every act of malice carries an echo, every injustice accumulates consequence. What was sown in envy, control, and fear returns multiplied, not as punishment but as correction. The laws that govern spirit move with a certainty beyond human reach, and the debts created by their actions now surge back upon them. What they believed permanent reveals itself as temporary, swept away by the very principles of balance they refused to acknowledge. The signs were always present, offering countless chances to shift course, yet arrogance refused to listen. Now the weight of choices lands with perfect symmetry, each outcome reflecting the harm once inflicted. Isolation imposed on another now returns as their own solitude. Questioning someone's truth transforms into the collapse of their own credibility. Whispers once used as weapons now turn into storms, unraveling their stability. The parallels arrive so precise, so intricately mirrored, that denying the pattern becomes its own form of torment. As this mirror sharpens, those who engineered deception find themselves unable to escape recognition. The very tactics they wielded with pride rebound, each consequence a reflection of their original cruelty. Attempts to dismiss the connection only deepen the spiral, because the resemblance is undeniable. What they once forced others to endure now becomes their own reality, a demonstration of universal law playing out in real time. It is not vengeance by human hands, but a balancing act written into existence itself. Control rarely departs without struggle, yet there are shifts no grasp can stop. There comes a moment when the tide is irreversible, when authority simply dissolves despite every desperate attempt to maintain it. Power that once seemed unshakable melts away, leaving only fragments. The silence imposed on others erupts into collective voices no longer willing to obey. What was hidden emerges openly, and the awakening spreads faster than those who enforced illusions can comprehend. People begin to see what was previously veiled, as if waking from a trance. Questions surface with urgency. How could this deception last so long? How did so many accept such distortion as truth? Those once content to ignore now step forward with clarity, no longer willing to participate in the charade. The unraveling cannot be stopped, because once awareness begins, the process accelerates on its own momentum. Every act of suppression contributes to a spiritual debt that can no longer be ignored. The very pressure applied to extinguish your spark only increased the inevitability of its expansion. Protection emerges in forms beyond calculation, aligning encounters, opportunities, and guidance with perfect timing. Coincidences reveal themselves as synchronicities, stepping stones placed with precision to lead you toward liberation. What was once dismissed as imagination reveals itself as higher clarity breaking through. Those who sent destructive energy now sit in the echo of their own projections. The interference they directed outward rebounds into their own lives, shaking the foundations of health, peace, and connection. Their efforts to restrict are absorbed by the universe and returned in kind, not as cruelty but as correction. The order of things is restored with exactness, reminding all that no act disappears into emptiness, it reverberates until balance is reestablished. And through this, the self once obscured emerges fully, radiant, and undeniable. The false limitations dissolve, exposing them for what they always were, inventions meant to contain what could never truly be confined. Every scar turns into proof of resilience, every wound transforms into vision, every betrayal becomes fuel for expansion. In rising beyond the prison, you discover strength that even you once doubted was possible. You do not merely recover, you rise as a new force, carrying wisdom carved from survival and a purpose magnified by what could not destroy you. Every attempt to weaken you has instead carved out new strength. The force meant to confine has become the fire that expands your capacity. Their collapse into shrinking spaces contrasts with your expansion into boundless ones. Energy siphoned away through schemes flows back multiplied, returning as clarity, vitality, and opportunities they could never counterfeit. What was once drained now arrives overflowing, restoring what was hidden beneath layers of suppression. From the very wounds inflicted, resilience is born. Attacks intended to diminish only sharpen your discernment. Deception becomes the teacher of truth, and betrayal the tutor of loyalty. Each strike forces growth, each loss cultivates depth. The weight of adversity molds you into a force more radiant than you imagined, revealing that your strength did not emerge in spite of their efforts but precisely through them. When facades fall, the scale of orchestration is exposed. Idle gossipers confront their complicity, and passive participants awaken to realize they stood inside an organized assault masquerading as concern. The reverberations spread beyond individual lives, shaking families, communities, and networks. People who once turned away now face their reflection, forced to question how illusion was allowed to thrive. The very reputations built on manipulation dissolve, revealing only the rot beneath the polish. The most devastating collapse is not material but spiritual. Those who once justified their actions now face the unrelenting clarity of truth. They cannot hide behind denial, for the evidence stands undeniable. Their motives are revealed raw, their choices laid bare, and they stand stripped of illusion. The toll is not in reputation alone but in the soul, a bankruptcy of integrity that no public redemption can repair. Meanwhile, what once was silenced rises with unstoppable momentum. Voices repressed for years resound like thunder, undeniable and far-reaching. Control evaporates, and influence that seemed immovable dissolves like mist in sunlight. Consciousness reclaims its ground, tearing away the illusion that power rests in deception. You stand as living testimony to endurance, not broken but uncontainable, not erased but magnified by every attempt to undo you. The ripple effect cannot be contained. Transformation within you sparks recognition in others, igniting questions in places where silence once ruled. Those who stayed quiet now face the weight of complicity, and bystanders once content with comfort awaken to their role in sustaining the system. What began as your personal survival now echoes as a collective awakening, reshaping the atmosphere far beyond your individual story. Your rise becomes proof that liberation is possible. Hidden wounds in others are illuminated by your example, and countless souls find courage to face what once seemed insurmountable. Patterns once invisible come into focus, and healing begins where silence once dominated. By refusing to bend, you open pathways for others to stand. What was designed to break you becomes the spark that lights an entire generation of truth seekers, healers, and visionaries. Your strength, forged in the relentless fire of resistance, now carries a resonance that cannot be ignored. When you speak of deception, ears open. When you reveal hidden tactics of suppression, hearts awaken. When you describe the calling etched into your soul, your words strike with undeniable weight. The credibility you embody is not granted by others but born from surviving what was designed to silence you. The true intent of the assault was never about one life alone. It was always about halting the chain reaction your presence sparks in others. Yet survival itself becomes revolution. The ripples of your endurance travel outward, igniting recognition, healing, and courage in those who encounter your truth. What was plotted as your erasure becomes the very catalyst for activation across countless lives. Dreams once buried under false burdens rise again with unstoppable vitality. Abilities long concealed surface sharper than ever. Purpose, though delayed, arrives aligned with the depth of wisdom earned through trial. What was taken for defeat is revealed as incubation, preparing gifts to emerge with greater magnitude. The methods you devised to endure now serve as blueprints for others, equipping them with strength you carved out in the darkest seasons. Your renewal is not a personal victory alone, it signals a tectonic shift. Each refusal to break alters the balance, making the path clearer for others walking similar roads. Your triumph is a beacon proving that suppression cannot erase destiny. The energy once invested in opposition now transforms into momentum, carrying you into the fullness of your calling. What was weaponized against you has become the very engine of your expansion. Resources once hoarded to contain your influence no longer matter. The barriers built to cage your potential crumble, powerless against the inevitability of emergence. You stand as living testimony that authentic purpose cannot be destroyed, only obscured for a season. Spiritual gifts are not eliminated, only hidden until conditions ripen. Power is never lost, only remembered when the soul awakens to its own reflection. The illusions collapse, and the story they wrote concludes with their own downfall. The truth now stands undeniable, shining with intensity no manipulation can dim. The attempts to confine you have only revealed the magnitude of your endurance. What was meant to silence has amplified your presence. What was meant to end your path has clarified the horizon before you.